Hello friends, welcome back and welcome to this episode, first episode, maybe, welcome to this video of the TBR Diaries. Like almost every other creator on the internet, or bookish creator on the internet, I am actively working to read down my physical TBR, and I have been working on doing it for a number of years now, and arguably it has gotten a lot better. However, there is always room for improvement. In my head for the last couple of years, my ideal TBR number is 25. Don't ask me why. I don't know. It's just the number that my head came up with that would be a good amount of books for me to feel like I am actively reading the things that come into my house. Now, why the need for a video, potentially a series called TBR Diaries? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I have hauled 40 books already this year, and it is the beginning of May. That's an average of 10 books a month. I don't love that. Now, the other slightly upsetting part of that is that I have only read 25 of those 40 books. And a good chunk of those books are books that I am buying because I read a book from the library or an ARC or whatever, and it was such a good reading experience that I needed to have a physical copy for my shelves, which means I've read even fewer of my physical TBR this year than 25. I think it's actually maybe like 23. So that math ain't mathin'. I don't know if you noticed. I am horrific at math, and even I can tell that math is not going to add up to me making my TBR smaller by the end of 2025. So here we are. This series is going to be me actively, intentionally reading a few books from my shelves to make sure that I am not solely reading ARCs or from the library, which is what I have been doing for the most part so far this year, which I didn't even realize until I went back and I counted. So for this first time through, while I'm trying it out, seeing if I like it, seeing if this is a fun idea, seeing if this format works for me, we are going to tackle some Romantasy books. Because I am still very much on the fence on if I like the contemporary iteration of Romantasy. I'm a big fantasy romance reader. I have always loved fantasy romance, but even though Romantasy is fantasy romance, publishing's current idea of Romantasy, I don't know if that's for me. I don't know if I like that vibe. I don't know if I like that energy. I don't know if I like those tropes and conventions, even though it should be pretty similar. I don't know. But I have some recently released Romantasy that I can read and A, get off my shelf, and B, try out and see if, yes, this is a genre that I really like in this new iteration, or, ooh, no, this is not for me. I'm going to go back over to my fantasy first, romance second reading. I hope that all made sense. So in this video, I'm going to be reading Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole, The Starlight, Heir by Amelie Howard, and Firebird by Juliet Cross. I am aware that there is some controversy with this book. I'm going to give it a shot anyways. Now, full disclosure, I am already about halfway through Spark of the Everflame. I started it over the weekend. It's currently Tuesday, and I had a hold on this audiobook from the library, and it finally came in from Libby, so I am reading it about halfway through. So far, I think it is fine. I would argue so far in book one, it is fantasy first, maybe romance second, though I have already clocked who our romantic lead is going to be. I don't think it's a surprise, but this is about Diem, who lives in this world where fairies rule over everything, and if you're mortal or human, you're kind of like a second-class citizen, and procreating between the human mortals and the fae is strictly forbidden. Children that are born from those unions are immediately put to death, and it's just not they don't want that. And Diem's mother is a healer, so Diem herself is a healer, and Diem looks like one of these fae. They're called the Descended, right? Yeah. And the beginning of the book, Diem's mother goes missing, and Diem discovers, kind of by accident, that her mother was involved in some shady stuff. And so DM is trying to uncover what her mother was up to. So far, I would say I like the writing. I think it's really easy to read. I'm really liking the audiobook. I like DM. Pencil is doing something that I really annoys me in romantasy, or just in a romance in general, where you start the book and your main character has a love interest that it is clear is not going to be the love interest for the series. I don't like that. I don't like that. And I don't know why I don't like that. I guess I feel like it's wasting my time. Like, why are you giving me this couple that I'm not going to root for? Because this is not the end game guy. So why is he even here? I think that's the attitude I have about it. But I'm interested to see what happens in this one, mostly because I do already have 2 and 3. I have them in ARC form from it being traditionally published. And this audiobook is 10 hours. I forget how much we bump up for book 2, but we bump up a little bit for book 2 to maybe like 14 hours. And then book 3 is 24 hours. I expect there to be a little bit of a jump up with page numbers as we go farther in the series, especially if there's like a political fantasy rebellion situation, which I think is where we're going. But 14 hours? 14 more hours between book 1 and book 3? What is going to happen in book 1 that you need that many pages to tell this story? So, I'm intrigued. Kind of scared. Mostly intrigued. And I don't know if we're even going to get the beginning of the romance between DM and the Fae dude in this book. I'm also not a big fan of the Fae dude, but to be fair, he hasn't been in this very much. He's only been in a couple of scenes. We're really just getting to know her, which is fine. It's also single POV, which, you know, largely isn't my favorite. I like to get both point of views. Maybe that will come in later books as he becomes more of a character. But right now, this is very much a fantasy. So I'm liking it. I'm having a good time. When I can forget that it's supposed to be romantasy. So anyways, that's where we're going to start. And I will come back, of course, as I read more and I have more thoughts. And I just have seen this book everywhere and I've been really intrigued because I've seen some really great reviews and then some like meh reviews. So I'm interested to see where I fall in the review spectrum, if you will. So yeah, welcome to the video, and let's hope I have a good time. Finished it last night. I'm giving it 4 stars. I would still argue this is fantasy first, romance second, if we're judging it in that way, like if that's how we're judging whether or not something is romantasy. And I'm going to assume the rest of the books are going to get more romantic because we just got like the very basic foundation of this romance in this book. I really dug it. This was fun. It was like the perfect length, which makes me extra nervous for how chunky the other books get. But I think I'm going to hold on to my copies of the ARCs for book 2 and 3. And eventually, like, yeah, I'm going to at least read book 2. Then we'll see how that goes. I'm not going to commit to the whole series. But I really liked this. I thought it was fun. I thought it was propulsive. I like the plot. We're not doing anything new with this book. It was very predictable. I did know every single plot point before we got to it. Every reveal was very apparent from the very beginning. We're not trying to fool anybody with this book, but I don't care. I'm not looking to be fooled. Like it did what I thought it was going to do. And there is something really delightful about the dependability of an author following through on the promise of the premise. And I think Pencil did that in like a really satisfying way. So yeah, Also, I really like enemies to lovers or rivals to lovers or whatever you want to call it. I like that antagonism, not in real life. Like sometimes my husband will try to fight with me and call it bantering and I hate it. I don't want that. I want a gentle like relationship in real life. But in fiction, I like when they're antagonistic. I like when they fight and I like when when the other one is mean to them. Like, I don't know. So every time every time Diem was mean to the man who's going to be the love interest and he smiled a little bit because he liked it. Oh God, I just eat it up with a spoon. I absolutely love it. And I feel like it just further highlighted in this why enemies to lovers does not work in contemporary romance. It just doesn't. It doesn't. And contemporary romance authors have tried to make it work and it just doesn't work. It needs to stay in fantasy or horror or like horror romance, fantasy romance, sci-fi romance. Like it needs to stay in the speculative space. Enemies to lovers has no business going over to contemporary romance, and I think this might be a hill I am willing to die on. I feel very passionately about this now. As of the 24 hours ago when I first had this thought while reading this book. Anyways, it was great. Good time. I like the audiobook. Sad that my library does not have the audiobook on Libby. Fingers crossed it will soon, but it doesn't yet. I don't think I have any further thoughts to say about this, so I think that's good. Like I said, 4 stars. Now, I probably is not in the spirit of this video to come at you right now with a book haul, but that is in fact what I have. Though in my defense, I am planning to read both of these books this month because one is my book for my year of Butler and Gaskell and one is a book club book for Patreon that I am in. They will be read by the end of the month. First up is Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I have yet to purchase a Butler book for this challenge and I just felt like if I was going to buy one of them, it should be this one. And I also currently have this on audio from the library. Oh, I got something on it. Sad. So I do need to get on this sooner rather than later, but this is apocalyptic science fiction, takes place in the year 2024, 2025. I don't think I'm going to have a good time, but I do think it's an important book for me to read. So I have that to do eventually this month if I stop doing random vlog projects. And then I bought Welcome to the Hunam Dong Bookshop by Huang Bo Riem. I should have looked that up before I tried to just raw dog it. I don't think I need to give this book too much preamble. It's been everywhere. This is the paperback cover, and I don't think I like it. I think the hardcover cover is better, and I don't know why they changed it. They're just, I don't know. What do you think? I'll put up the hardcover art for comparison. You let me know. Which one do you like better? The original or the new paperback? Anyways, I am really, I don't know why I bought this because I'm really on the fence on if I like this type of fiction because my track record for how I feel about cozy and earnest books is that I am not gonna like it. I do not like earnest literature because I'm a horrible person, but yeah, I don't know why I felt like I needed to buy this, but I guess I just felt like I needed to buy it. So those are my books that I'm adding to my collection, but like I said, we'll read these this month, so these will not be part of the problem. Fingers crossed. All right, I had to pause this vlog for a little bit because I had other projects that were a little bit more pressing, but I am back and I have started and made progress in Firebird by Juliet Cross. I'm on page 140, about to start chapter 12, and I have thoughts. Boy howdy. All right, first of all, here's my background with Juliet Cross. I have read Wolf Gone Wild, and I read it several years ago, 3 or 4, and I liked it okay, but it wasn't a favorite, but I did enjoy it. Probably like a 3.5 star book for me. And that is a paranormal romance. It's contemporary, it's set in New Orleans, and the main character, she is a witch, and the love interest is a werewolf. And the thing I thought was fun about that is the wolf exists in that man's head as a separate entity. So the wolf would have all the possessive, borderline sexist thoughts, and then the guy, as like his human thoughts, would be like, absolutely not. Don't say that about her. Don't think that. We're not going to do that. No, that's not how you behave in the 21st century. So like that kind of vibe. And at the time, I thought that was a clever way to still have that like alpha hole thought process without the hero himself being an alpha hole. But I didn't continue on with the series because I didn't enjoy it enough to commit to a really long-running paranormal romance series. So fast forward to this, which is dark romantasy. And I am not a dark romance girl. I don't enjoy a lot of the themes that come along with dark romance. And this opens with Melina, who is Romani, and she is an empath, and she's been using her magic to help this Celtic tribe group fight off a Roman army. But the Roman army has finally conquered them, and she is about to be brutally attacked by the soldiers and this general of the army, Julian. He comes over to stop it because the prisoners are not supposed to be spoiled before they go to the slave market. And he sees one look at her and thinks treasure. Oh, and the Roman general men, warrior people can shift into dragons. So this is still a shifter romance because he can shift into a dragon. Sorry, that's an important plot point. So he sees Melina and his dragon is like treasure, and he grabs her and like takes her back to his house. And it was so funny because like prior to that, in his inner monologue had been like, oh, these soldiers have no discipline. I'm the most disciplined. I'm the most vicious. I have great control over my ability to shift and never let my dragon take control. And then he sees one look at Melina and his dragon fully takes over without his consent, basically. And so it's just so funny to be like, oh yeah, you're super powerful and in control. I believe you. That whole monologue and then you doing the exact opposite of what you have just told us you can do does not sell me that you are truthfully representing yourself in this book. But it's doing the same thing that Wolf Gone Wild did, where she is a witch, he is a shifter, and he has two thought processes in his head. He has his man inner voice and his dragon inner voice, which is, you guessed it, super possessive, kind of sexist, thinks of her as treasure, and wants to hoard, like keep her all to himself. So it's feeling very repetitive, which is deeply unfortunate that I've only read, like this is only the second Juliet Cross book. And other than it being set in ancient Rome, it feels exactly the same as the other one I read. My second complaint is that this is set in a fantasy-inspired ancient Rome. So the people are doing what ancient Romans did. They're conquering, they're colonizing, and they're enslaving people. And so he enslaves Melina, and which is fine. I guess I have issue when white writers in Romantasy feel the need to have their main character also be enslaved. It's kind of why I haven't read the Daughter of No World series by Carissa Broadbent, because I know she starts out as a slave, and it just kind of feels icky. It kind of feels icky. And at least in that one, like to my knowledge, she breaks out of slavery and is trying to rescue other enslaved people, and she's not falling in love with anybody who has enslaved her, as far as I know. This one, they're falling in love. And Juliet Cross is trying real hard to do the like, no, but he's a good slave owner because he treats his slaves so well. He's so nice to them. He takes care of them. He's actually rescued them all from really horrible situations. And so he's a good slave owner. And I'm like, he's still a slave owner. So maybe, and I get that's the point of dark romantasy, is you have this character that is maybe kind of morally reprehensible, but like that is just not my vibe. It's just not my vibe. So those are my thoughts so far. There's been a couple of scenes between them that maybe are supposed to have like sexual tension, but I'm just like, no. Not a fan. Not a fan. I did primarily listen to it on audio yesterday. I went to go hang out with my sister, and it's about an hour drive to get to her house. So I put in a decent chunk of time listening to this on audio. And I could continue. Should I continue? I don't know. It's definitely not my thing, and I'm not loving it, but it's not atrocious also. Like the writing isn't bad. I think I could probably not overlooked the slave master. I could probably not look past, but like I could probably deal with the slave master romance if it didn't feel like she cut and copied Wolf Gone Wild into that book. Like I'm finding that more upsetting and more frustrating than I am the slave master part, because I can see that she's trying to make that part okay. It's also because it's ancient Rome. There's just so much sexual assault. Not from the main character, because remember, guys, he's a good slave master. Okay. But from like all these other Roman soldiers, and that's never shown in Melina's point of view. It's always from Julian's point of view. But I don't like reading books where there's a lot of assault. Or maybe any assault. I would say I don't like reading books with any assault in them. And I actually try to avoid it if at all possible. And it hasn't been a lot, but it's been enough that I'm not digging it. I honestly don't know whether I want to continue or whether I want to DNF. It's pretty short. It's 380 pages, which feels short for a romantasy. I also think because I read Spark of the Everflame first and I liked that so much, and I loved the tension, and like even though there wasn't really any romance in that book, just the like groundwork that Penn Cole laid between those two characters, and like how delightful the tension was between them when they did interact. Like that's what I'm measuring this against, and it's just not as good in my opinion. It's not as fun, it's not as engaging, and again, this feels like she just copy pasted. Like she has, I don't know, I haven't read any of her other books, so maybe that's not, like maybe she doesn't just copy and paste those qualities into each book, but also maybe she does. Maybe this is the only story she knows how to tell, which like fine. Like obviously if that's how it is, she's made a career off of it, but I would like a little bit more creativity from romance authors. So I haven't decided what I'm gonna do yet. I'm gonna think about it. Maybe read a couple more chapters and see if I care enough to continue.
This isn't an official update or anything, but I need y'all to know that A, I'm still reading it. And B, Julian really said that he's not like other girls to Melina. Every time I walk in this parking lot, every time I think I'm safe, but there's somebody here. Okay, anyways, so yeah. The sad thing is there's been moments between these two characters where I know I'm supposed to be feeling the tension, the attraction, and I'm supposed to be like kicking my feet and giggling and like eating it up, and I feel nothing inside. So that's fun.
I'm in the middle of doing chores while I listen to this on audio, and I just have to let you know that the inconsistencies with this book from Melina's point of view, and I won't tell you what just happened, but a thing just happened, and Julian is like rampaging around because he's pissed, and in her inner monologue, she's like, his behavior is so totally out of control, which is very unlike him. Girl, he has never had a controlled moment in this book. I don't know who... Like, just the things that the characters tell us do not line up with their actions, is all I'm going to say. Also, I have a rant coming up later about publishing's misuse of the word romantasy, so look forward to that. Lighting is very orange, but it's almost 9 o'clock, so it just is what it is. But I finished Firebird. I'm giving it 2.5 stars. For what it's worth, the master-slave dynamic was truly the least offensive part of this book, if I'm being honest. Like, no, it's not great. No, it's not a trope or a dynamic that I would personally want to read, but I'm also not gonna like shame anybody for like the tropes that they like to explore through fantasy and through reading. I think Juliet Cross does a similar thing to what Carissa Broadbent does, as far as my knowledge goes, in The Daughter of No Worlds, where like she's not endorsing slavery and she's not defending it. But what my big beef with this book, I have several. Are you ready? The fact that it feels so similar to Wolf Gone Wild. My second complaint is that the Roman senators who can shift into dragons talk about their dragons as if they're sole separate entities. Like that the dragon and the man are not connected. I mean, there are women that can shift into dragons, but we hear of them in the book, but we don't really meet any of them. They're not actual characters. And so there's talk about how the men and the dragons they're talked about like they're separate beings, and that the actions of the dragon don't have a physical impact on the man. I don't get it. Like you are still you when you have morphed into the dragon. Yes, like their thought process changes and stuff, but I don't know. It just struck me as odd that they were talked about as if they were separate beings. I did not feel a single ounce of this is the real thing I'm mad about. I did not feel any chemistry between these two characters at all. I didn't feel any chemistry. I didn't feel like they really got to know each other. I feel like Juliet Cross used Fated Mates to just skate over any relationship building at all. The sex scenes were incredibly cringy. Like some of the worst sex scenes I think I've ever read in a romance novel. They were bad. And the dialogue was so cringy. Like, ugh. And happened at really inopportune moments where I'm like, excuse me, you have plot things that you are supposed to be doing right now. And the banging is not one of those plot things. Like, yes, sometimes banging is the plot, but in this case, banging was not the plot. And they had actual plot things to be doing, like lives were actually in danger, that bad things were happening, or people were injured. And I was like, no, there is a time and a place to be a horn dog. And that particular moment was not it. Okay, and then my last complaint about the book, and then I'll say something nice about it, is that the ending felt super rushed. And I don't know why, because this is not even 400 pages. So I feel like she had time and space. Like, we have books like When the Moon Hatched that are romantasy that are 700 pages. Like, this is even 400. She had time. You can't tell me Bramble is against publishing a 400-page romantasy. I wouldn't believe it. The ending felt super rushed. And because the ending with like the climactic action, and the resolution, and because all of that felt so rushed, the epilogue did not feel earned at all. And I deeply disliked the epilogue. Okay, so I said I'd say something nice. I think this cover is really pretty. I think the artist that they hired to draw Melina did a really good job. I think this is stunning art, and I think it's criminal that the inside does not match the outside. Okay, now let's get into my rant. I am fine with romantasy being a subgenre or being a marketing buzzword, whatever. But I am not fine with it if it is erasing other established subgenres that have been around for a long time and that have had incredible popularity in their own right. My guys, this is paranormal romance. This is not romantasy. It's just not. We have shifters, and that is really the only magic that exists in this world. There is talk of Melina being a witch, and she is, as we were told, incredibly powerful, has incredibly powerful empathic powers, but that's it. And shifting, in my opinion, is a paranormal romance trope, device, thing. Like that is its subgenre. It is not a romantasy thing. It is paranormal. And I just really want publishers to market books correctly and not to slap the incorrect social media buzzword on a book just to sell books, because the people that Firebird is for, they will find this book even if it's labeled as paranormal romance. I think paranormal romance with like Bride coming out, was that last year or the year before, and like I feel like we're primed for another wave of paranormal romance. I feel like we're primed for another paranormal romance wave, so I don't know why we can't just do that and stop calling books romantasy when they're clearly not romantasy. Same spot, but like 19 hours later. I've started the Starlight Heir. I also just got out of the shower, so it's wet hair time, but I'm about to like settle down and read, and so I want to give you an update before my initial thoughts just fly out of my head. And yes, I just blow dry my bangs because they will not dry straight, they will dry wavy, which is not cute on me. Anyways, Starlight Heir. This is set in like a fantasy world. I don't think it's inspired by anything. And our main character, Sura, lives in this small village. Her father owns the inn, and she wants to be a blacksmith. But she is using like forbidden magic that is allowed to royalty and to people who are important, but to poor people like Sura, this magic is forbidden and it's illegal for her to have, and she could get in a lot of trouble if she is discovered with it. And almost right away, we are told that she has received an invitation, that she believes she has received an error from the royal palace. And what has happened is that the prince has put out this competition for his next bride, and only certain women, young women in the kingdom, have received this invitation, and they're supposed to go to the palace, compete in this game competition style thing for his hand in marriage. And Sura very reluctantly goes, and of course is met with hostility from the other women. She definitely does not fit in with the type of woman generally that has been invited to participate, and hijinks ensue from there. Okay, so it does say on the back that, and I haven't quite gotten to here yet, but I'm getting close to this point, that the invitation isn't a quest to find a suitable bride. It's a veiled hunt for the Starkeeper, a girl rumored to hold the magic of the stars in her blood. And then I think there's like rebels and stuff happen. I know, I'm so descriptive. First of all, I think it's interesting that there are, I'm only going to be able to name two, but I think there's more, that historical romance authors seem to be maybe not fully pivoting to romantasy, but releasing books in romantasy, because Amelie Howard is traditionally published historical romance. I've read her debut and I really liked it. And then I know Sophie Jordan had a romantasy book come out this year. So just an interesting shift, I think. I think there's a lot of overlap between historical romance and romantasy, so, or just fantasy romance in general. So that kind of makes sense to me, that if you are a romance author and you want to pivot from your genre, that lateral step makes sense to me. I'm not loving this so far, mostly because I don't think this book knows what it is. I don't think Amelie Howard could decide if she was writing a historical romance in a fantasy setting or like an urban fantasy, even though it's definitely not urban fantasy. This is a separate fantasy world, but the language keeps switching back and forth. So for the most part, it feels like pretty standard fantasy descriptions, language, the way the characters talk, like they feel very standard for a fantasy world. But then they will say something that feels so contemporary that it pulls me right out of the story. Her best friend says somebody is so hot. I'm sorry, what? That was my first, where I stopped reading. I was like, he's so what? Ma'am, do you know you're in a fantasy novel and not a contemporary romance? And then the other one was, Sura in her like thoughts thought what the actual fuck. But we've already established that if they are swearing, like there's a different phrase that the characters say that's specific. You know how fantasy worlds will come up with like a fantasy swear word. So it's like, okay, wait, you went to the trouble to think up a separate fantasy swear word, and your character is still gonna go, what the actual fuck? And then the one that really took me out is So one of the characters Sura meets at the palace is Roshan, who is like the illegitimate half-brother prince. So he is the son of the king, but his mother was like a concubine or a prostitute or a lady in waiting or something. And so he's a prince, but nobody really, like the crown prince doesn't like him. His stepmother, the queen, doesn't like him. Like nobody likes him. But he is delightful and obviously like totally coded to be the hero. And he and Sura are bantering, which for the most part is like delightful. I love the banter. But she asks him if he's going to prince-splain her. And I just don't know what to do with that. The very 2025, 2024, whatever language coming through is definitely pulling me out of it. I really wish she had not included those moments. I know there's a couple more that I came across, but I didn't take the time to write them down because... But yeah, that I'm not loving that. Yeah, and I would say my other critique so far is that her best friend Lali, who was in the beginning of the book, hasn't been in the rest of it so far, and I don't know that she will unless they somehow go back to her home, I just forgot her name, Sura's home. But the best friend is very horny. She loves a good lay, like love that for her. But it was so aggressively over the top. So I didn't like that. I was like, yes, sex positivity, but can we do sex positivity? Like, can we tone it down just a little bit? That's like, it was too much. It felt really over the top. But now we're at the palace. I don't think the games component is going to be a strong element because I'm 100 pages in and I think the game part is over. So there's that. Sorry, I can't keep my camera straight. This is what I get for not using my tripod. Anyways, those are my thoughts so far. I'm going to keep on reading, see what happens with the rest of the story. Hopefully the very modern phrases will stop because I don't like them. And hopefully I will be able to give this one a higher rating than Firebird, which I cannot believe that Spark of the Everflame so far is like the best one in this video. I mean, am I surprised? I don't know if I'm surprised. I just think that's interesting, I guess. I have 2 more thoughts before I forget them, because I already forgot them. So before I double forget them. 1, in a very unfortunate coincidence, Sura, same thing. Her name is Soraya. Everybody has called her Sura except for like one person, so whatever. Unfortunately has the same nickname as Melina did in Firebird, which is Firebird. So that's an unfortunate coincidence. Second thought that I had is that I do really like how this book has not fucked around with getting to the point. The story started right away and it has been going at a fairly fast pace since the beginning, and I really appreciate that, especially after like the inconsistent pacing of Firebird. I know I should be comparing Spark of the Everflame to these books as well, but I like overbooked myself. I think I've mentioned this already for this month in bookish projects, and I read Spark of the Everflame like 2 weeks ago. So it's just not, maybe even more than that, maybe at the beginning of the month, and we only have like 1-ish week left in May. So it's been a minute. So it's not as fresh in my mind, unfortunately. But I think even Spark of the Everframe, because it's going to be such a long series, that one was even kind of slow to get going. Or not slow, but just like we're taking our time getting to the plot, which is fine. If it's still engaging and entertaining, I don't mind if a book takes its time to get to the point. But I am appreciating how quick this one is moving so far. I have 2 chapters left of the Starlight Heir, and I wish I had updated you at like the 60% mark because I had theories about plot points that were going to happen, and now I can't tell you what they were because I was right. So, lesson learned. I need to update more regularly. But also, thank goodness for this audiobook because I definitely would have DNF'd if not for the audiobook. Okay, but more thoughts coming. 1 second for you. Several hours for me when I'm done with work. I finished and okay. I'm giving it a 3. I might talk myself down a lower rating as I talk about this book. We'll see. I think this book needed another round. Maybe another round of editing, maybe just an extra draft, but it needed more than whatever it got. And the thing that's hard for me with this one is that I think Amelie Howard is a good writer. I've just read her debut, but I thought that was really well done. It's like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I really liked it. And I think she is a good writer because even though I haven't read her other historical romances, I've seen really good reviews for her other work. So I'm not quite sure what happened with this one, but I don't think the world building was as expansive as it could be or as it should have been. I think the way the language was makes it very clear that this world probably isn't as fully realized as it should be. The fact that like she goes to the effort of making up this world's swear words and then totally disregards it and has characters saying the F word fairly frequently, which is fine. Like, I don't care that they're swearing. I just don't know why you go to the effort of creating fantasy swear words when you're just going to use real world swear words anyways. The 21st century language continuing to be interjected into the scenes goes through the whole book. It doesn't stop, which also kind of makes me feel like she doesn't know this world as extensively as she should. Or maybe this should have been urban fantasy and then she could have used, 21st century like colloquialisms and it would have been fine. The plot of this does turn into something else. If you have wanted to pick up this book because you heard about the game component, the competition, that is such a brief part of this book that I think if that's the reason you're picking this up, you will be disappointed. It quickly switches to kind of a quest story, but there's a lot of stuff going on. She's clearly building up for, by she I mean Howard, is clearly building up for a multi-book series with a plot that is going to stretch over multiple books. So we're really getting a lot of stuff into place. As I mentioned earlier, there is a twist, if you want to call it that. I think it's really predictable because, like I said, I predicted it earlier. Not exactly what was going to happen, but there was one character where in my gut, around 60% was like, this person's going to betray the main character. He's going to betray her. That's just how it is. And it happened. And I'm kind of mad about that because I'm not a reader who predicts very often. Like, it has to be really obvious for me to, in the act of reading, to stop and think, oh, I think this is going to happen, because otherwise I'm just here for the ride. I'm here for the vibes. I'm just here to have a good time. And I don't care usually about whether or not I can predict it because I usually don't try. So the fact that I knew is not, I don't like that. I don't like that. I think the chemistry between the main characters is good. I don't know that I necessarily find their romance believable, but I think the banter is well done. The steamy scenes were not cringy, which I appreciated. They were so much better than the steamy scenes in Firebird. So much better. I do not have steamy scenes to compare them to in Spark of the Everflame, but because there was no steamy scenes. But I don't think the tension wasn't as good as it was in Spark of the Everflame. So yeah, I'm just gonna give it's a 3. It's a very mid book. It didn't make me angry, except that I was able to predict what was gonna happen at the end. But it did definitely feel like it needed another round of something, whatever that may be. Audiobook is very good. Let me tell you who the audiobook narrator is. Oh, speaking of the audiobook, so this is another critique of this book. There are 2 parts in this book. Because we're getting the book from Soraya's point of view. It's first person narrative. And then every once in a while there are these like little short, maybe 1 page, maybe a page and a half long chapters from God of Night. And those lead nowhere. Nothing happens with them. We don't learn anything, doesn't move the plot forward, and it's just there. And why? Why was that necessary? I don't know why we needed those interjections. They literally did nothing to propel the story forward or to add nuance or subtext or anything. So they just felt super useless. So no offense to the second narrator, but because his part he was reading didn't do anything, I'm not going to talk about him. But I am going to tell you that the narrator, Anise Inara Chase, was excellent. She did such a good job. The only reason I finished this book is because of her narration. So I think if you pick this up, audiobook is definitely the way to go. But now that I finished that means we're going to wrap up this vlog with reading these 3 books that have been on my TBR for a minute. Spark of the Everflame I've had since late last year, and Firebird and Starlight Heir both came home in January. So it's nice to get these unread books off of my shelf. I will definitely be taking these 2 arcs to a little free library. In case it wasn't clear based on my review, I'm not going to be continuing with either of these series, but I am going to be keeping Spark of the Everflame because I definitely want to continue on with this series and see what is going to happen, even though it now feels like a million years since I read this book. If we were going to play rewrite, reread, and burn, I would definitely reread Spark of the Everflame. I would probably burn Firebird, and I would rewrite the Starlight Heir, because I think this could be really fun because it's so fast paced. There's so much adventure. The tension is good. The banter and the flirty between the 2 love interests is good. It just had a lot of inconsistencies in the writing that could be fixed and make this a much stronger world, a much stronger book. That's my final critique for what it's worth. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching and for spending your precious time with me. If you would like to leave an emoji to let me know you were here, what are the odds there's a Firebird emoji? Oh my gosh, there is. All right, we'll leave a Firebird emoji since that was the nickname for 2 characters. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Bye.